Hello, welcome to Coding Keywords. My name is Dr. Adejo, and today we're going to have our first session on the Introduction to Excel course. So, at Coding Keywords, we train on different aspects of tech, including Excel and data analysis. So, we just go straight to the class. So, I'm going to share my screen, and once you join, or if you're in this live session, I want you to drop a comment. Um, so let me know if you're hearing me very well and also if you're able to see my screen shared. Okay, so straight away we are here on Excel. So let me confirm that my screen is shared. Okay. Um, all right, so yeah, so this is Excel, and our first module, module one, we're going to be looking at introduction to Excel. So I'm going to give an overview of the different things we'll be looking at. So first we'll start with introduction to Excel and the interface, and then we'll do basic data entry and editing. Then we'll move on to basic formatting and calculations, and so on and so forth. We also have some extra content there. The last one there is AI for data analysis and also the tech skills assessment. So we're going to have 10 classes all on YouTube. So just stay connected. All right. Okay. So first of all, we're going to be looking at our first lesson here, 1.1, what Excel is and why it is used. What is Excel? So Excel is a spreadsheet application used to store, organize, calculate, analyze, and present data. Excel is one of the most used software in the world. And we have the keyword there, data. So data is the keyword. So when we're working with Excel, we're working with data. Let's compare Excel with some other tools in the Microsoft Office suite. We have Microsoft Word and we have Microsoft PowerPoint. So Microsoft Word is used to create documents. So you can have your documents, you can type. So you can type your articles, you can type your books, you can add images, and you can create documents. So we see that Microsoft Word is usually arranged in pages. So we see pages, and then Microsoft PowerPoint is used for presentations. So we have slides. So Excel is different. Excel is a spreadsheet application and it's used to do all kinds of manipulations, with data. So we're going to see more about that later. Now, Excel is grid-based, unlike Word, which is text-based, or PowerPoint, which is slide-based. Okay, so here we have the grid. So this is Excel, and we have the grid. So the grid is like a combination of lines. Okay, so we can see lines and we can see a table-like structure. So here we're able to store our data in the different blocks, the different squares. So it's grid-based. And we use Excel for things like record keeping, for things like our attendance. So you go for a meeting and you want to track the attendance. So we can use Excel for that. We use Excel for inventory. We use Excel for results. So when it comes to Microsoft Word, we're most likely typing. So we're typing, creating our notes, writing our articles. But in Excel, we're doing something different. We're working with records, we're working with data. Okay, so we also use it for calculations. Okay, so in Excel, we're going to be working with text. We'll also be working with numbers. So when we're working with numbers, storing our numbers in our tables, we're going to be doing our totals and averages and budgets. So this is like the maths aspect. Okay, so when we're doing Microsoft Word, it's more like the language, English aspects. When we're doing Excel, we also have opportunity to do calculations. We also use it for analysis. So when we have our data and we want to find more insights, get more to find the story that our data is telling, we can do analysis. We want to check performance, we want to check trends, That's kind of what we use Excel for. We also use Excel for reporting, so we can come up with charts that explain what our data is all about. So there's a question for you, which I want you to give me a response in the chat. Where have you seen tables before? Okay, so we have things like school records, lists, church lists, sales books. We deal with records in our everyday life. So please put in the chat um, other examples of records. Okay, now what problems could Excel solve faster than paper? Yes, we also use paper to keep our records, but then we know that when we make it in digital format like in Excel, it's easier to manipulate and work with, and then it's more secure. Our records are preserved. So let me just check in the chat. Sorry, in the live session, just to be sure I'm still connected and up. All right, so next up, we move to lesson 1.2, and here we're going to see the Excel workspace, understanding the workspace and the Excel interface. Okay, so first of all, we have the first layer as the Excel file, and it's also called a workbook. So a workbook is the Excel file, and remember that when we're working on our computer, when we're working on the Windows operating system, just like in other operating systems, we have our files. So our files are stored in folders. So for you to work in Excel, you have to be working in a file. Okay, you can also work online. Okay, you can work on Excel online, but to work with Excel on your computer, you have to have the Excel file. So the Excel file is called the workbook. So if you have your files saved in a folder, you would go to the folder and click on it, click on the file to open it. So we have the workbook as the first layer. Now, when you open your workbook, you're going to be seeing worksheets. So just like we have pages in Microsoft Word, we have sheets in Excel. So currently we are on sheet one. We're on sheet one. So you can see the sheets down. Okay, so if you look down, just around where my mouse is, you can see the sheet tab, and then you can see the different sheets. Currently, I have 3 sheets in Excel. So it's more similar to saying I have 3 pages. So we have individual pages in our workbook, which we call worksheets. Now, to the next layer, our worksheets have rows and columns. So our rows are numbered 1, 2, 3. So if we look at this left area here, we can see the rows numbered. We can see the rows numbered, and each row represents a record in our data sets. So this is row 1, and we can see that it represents the records from left to right. This is row 3. This is row 7. So we have different records, and they are numbered, and then they show us our entries from left to right. Next up, we have our columns. Our columns are lettered. So I have our columns lettered from A, B, C. Okay, so continues that way. And our columns represent the categories of our data. Okay, so each record is a unique entry, and then the columns show us the categories. So if we're having our Excel worksheet used to track attendance, we can have each record on each row for each person, and then each column would represent different categories or properties of the person. So like the person's name, each person's name, um, um, and other details like the phone number, date of birth, and all of that. Okay, so we have rows and columns, and then where we have our rows and columns intersect is what we call our cell. Okay, so we have, this is column A, and this is row 1, and then column A and row 1 intersect here. So this is cell A1. This is cell A1. The column letter first, and then the row number. So this is A1, and then over here is D9. Good. Okay, so these are just the basics of Excel. Trying to understand the interface. So now let's look at the workspace, and we're going to be looking at the ribbon. So looking at the top area here, so we have the ribbon. So this is the ribbon, and we have the home tab, insert tab, page layout tab, formulas tab, and so on and so forth. So this is the ribbon, and essentially the ribbon has all the commands available for us in Excel. So if we look at the home tab, we can see different commands all grouped together, and then we have commands related to insert under the insert tab, and so on and so forth. So just like in other software, you can look at the ribbon and you can see all the commands available for you. And next we have the name box, and the name box shows the active cell. So this is the name box here. So we have the name box over here, and you can see that the active cell now is D9. This is D9. This is A1. So at every point in time when you click on a cell in the sheet, you can track it in the name box here. And next we have the formula bar, and over here is the formula bar just beside this fx. Yeah, so if you're familiar with maths, you already know this refers to something like a function. So this is the formula bar, and the formula bar displays the cell contents. Okay, so let me go over to cell C5. So I'm on cell C5, and you can see that here in the name bar, and let me type hello. You see, I typed hello in cell C5, and I can see the content in the formula bar. So it displays the cell contents. So this is interesting because C5 has two things we should take note of. The first thing we should take note of course, is the address, which is C5, which we can track here. And then the second thing is the contents. So the content is hello. Okay, so next up, we have our sheet tabs, and that we see down here. So these are sheet tabs. We have sheet 1, we have sheet 3, we had the exercise data sheets. So here are sheet tabs which help us to navigate between the different sheets. And then we have our status bar. So our status bar is just down here as well. So status bar helps us to have some information about different selected parts of our sheet. We're going to see that much later. And then open Excel. Okay, so you can launch Excel now. You can open an Excel file in your computer, and then just try clicking on the different cells and check the name bar, and track the different cell addresses as you click. I'm currently on E7, and then yes, observe the cell addresses. Okay, so just for a recap of this lesson, we have looked at the different layers. Now the keyword in this lesson 1.2 is layers. The first layer is the Excel file. You go to your folder in the computer, you click on the file, open the file, and next we have the sheets, the Excel sheet. So inside the sheets, inside the file we have sheets, and then we do different operations in our different sheets. Our sheets are like pages, so we go from file to sheets, and then we also go the next layer, which is our rows and columns. So within our sheets, we have rows and columns, and then where our rows and columns intersect is our cell. And then each cell is defined by the cell address. So we have our cell address, and then we also have the contents. Okay, so we have, this is currently cell C5. The address is C5. The content is hello. It is inside a sheet defined by the row and the column, and that sheet is inside an Excel file, and that file is inside a folder. So let's take note of the layers. Great. So next, we're going to look at how we navigate within our Excel sheet. Just a quick check on our live session. Okay, so how do we navigate? Okay, so, okay. I'm just having a little delay getting back to my file, my Excel file. Should be back soon. Okay, so I'm back just to be sure that I'm still connected. Okay, yes, so I'm back in Excel. Okay, so lesson 1.3 is how to navigate. How do we move around? Okay, first thing we can use is our mouse. Okay, so I've been using my mouse so far. So I can go and click. So I can click on any cell. So let me go over here. This is U4. Okay, so whenever you click on a cell, you don't have to look up and then trace it. You might not really, okay, so you can only see it highlighted. So you can see 4 is highlighted, U is highlighted, but you can just check the name box here and then you would see where you are. So I'm using my mouse and then I can move down here. I'm on B22. So you can click, use your mouse to click on different cells to navigate around. Next up is the arrow keys. So let me go over to A1 and then I use the arrow keys on my keyboard. I use the right arrow keys. Moving over to E1. I can use the down arrow keys to move to E5 and then I use the left arrow keys. I'm on C5 and then I use the up arrow keys. I'm on C2. So you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard, and also we have enter and tab. So currently I'm on C2 and if I press enter on my keyboard, I'm going down. So I'm going down using enter and then I'm using tab down to go right. So with tab I can go right and with enter I can go down. All right, so next up, control plus arrow keys can help me jump. Okay, so when you press control on the keyboard and let me currently press the up arrow key, I'm on C21. I press the up arrow key, it takes me up. Okay, so it helps me jump to the next data and then also to jump to the very top. So now let me go to F1 and then control left. I'm going straight to A1. So that's a shortcut to move around. And then scrolling, I can scroll up and down also using my mouse. So that's how to navigate in the worksheets. Okay, so next up, lesson 1.4 is understanding our cell addresses. And this is a recap. I've already talked about it. So the columns use letters. And the columns represent categories of data vertically from top to down, whilst the rows represent entries of data from left to right. Okay, so the columns use letters. A represents column A, B represents column B. And then the rows use numbers. Okay, so we have row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Okay, and the rows, like I said, represents our entries in our data sets across from left to right. Okay, and then the cell addresses are the combination of the column letter and the row number like we saw. So B3 means column B and row 3. So that's the cell address. All right, so we're to click cell C5, okay, which is here, C5, and then the name box shows that we are on C5. Next up is the range of cells. Now, when we select more than one cell, we call that a range. So let's see how to select from A1 to A5. So I go to A1, click on A1, see the name box shows I'm on A1, and then I highlight and drag, and then I've selected A1 to A5, and we can see it highlighted there. So that's A1 to A5. We can see column A is highlighted and rows 1 to 5 are highlighted. So that's how to select A1 to A5. And then I can also select A1 to C5 just by dragging my selection accordingly. So C5. So the name box would always show the first place I clicked. So I first clicked on A1 and it's showing there, and then I'm dragging it to have a range from A1 all the way to C5. Now, if I start from C5 and drag it this way, you see it's showing me C5 in the name box, but I'm still selecting the same range. So when you're working in Excel, you have to be very observant. So just observe, study the software, observe, and then you get used to all the details of working with it. So next up, we're going to move to saving, opening, and then our different file types. So let me just go back to check the stream to be sure that everything is still fine and everything is still okay. All right. So first up, we're looking at how to save. Okay. So we have two options: saving a file, and then we also have save as. So remember, if you opened a file from a folder in your computer, it means the file is already existing and every file has a name. So when you start working on that file, you can save. So when you use save, you're updating the file. So to do that, you just go to file and then you just click on save. So currently my file is called module one underscore and I have the dates there. So when I click on save, like I just did, I'm saving or updating the file and you can see it here saved to this PC. Now, if I want to create a new copy of the file, meaning that I don't want to update the existing file, but I want to create a new copy of the file, then I click on Save As. So I can do File, and then I click on Save As, and then I can save it with a new name, either in that same folder or in a different folder. So I can type the name there. You can call this module one with the dates A, and then I can save it. So that is save as. So whereas in save, which has a shortcut of Control S, I'm just updating the file in the same location. Whereas save as would help me to create a new file in the same location, or um, the same file in another location, or a new file in another location. All right, so we've been talking about locations as well. Locations just refers to where our files are stored in our computer. Remember that we deal with several files in our computers and we must be able to know where we save them to be able to track them. If we don't know where we save them, if we don't know the locations, we will not be able to work with the files later on. So file locations are very important. All right, so the file format for Excel is the .xlsx. .xlsx. That's the file format. And we know that every type of software application that we use on our computer has its associated file. So if you're working with Microsoft Word, you're going to be working with the .docx format. So that's the format for Microsoft Word. When you're working with PowerPoint, you're looking at the .ppt file format. So when it comes to Excel, it's .xlsx. So once you see a file with a name and this extension, you know you're dealing with an Excel file. Very important to take notes. We also have some other um, file formats associated with Excel. So if I do a save as, and then if you look over here, you can see the workbook is, like we said, .xlsx. We can see other formats, okay? So other Excel formats, other related formats, but the standard format is XLSX, okay? So it's important to know that this is also how the computer identifies different files. So if you're working with Notepad, we know that the standard there is .txt. We know that when working with pictures, we have .jpg, .png, where, and so on and so forth. Okay, so next up, we have the .csv, and this is when we have our spreadsheet saved in a strictly text-based format. So with .csv, we use it a lot in data analysis, and we can use it to store our data just in text. So that means that no styling, no shapes, no extra features, just the text. And this is very helpful, when, especially when we have large amounts of data. Okay, so that's about saving of our files. Still do a quick check on the stream. Okay, so everything is fine. All right, so next up, we're moving over to practice exercises. Okay, so we have different practice exercises here. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go to C5 and I'm going to delete what I have here. And then I'm going to go to the exercise data, just a simple exercise. And then I'm going to copy it. So I selected from A1 to D6 and then Control C to copy. And then I'm back at sheet 1. And then I go to A1, click on A1, and then I paste. So you can try that as well. You can try that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust this a bit and move this up a bit. So we have 14, or I could just move it here. Just move it here. Okay, so have a bit more space. So we have 14 different um, things to do in our exercises. Okay, so first of all, click cell A1. Okay, this is cell A1, and here we can see the formula bar. This is the contents. Um, Next up, move to D5 using the mouse. Okay, so I'm just going to take my mouse. This is D and all the way to 5. Okay, so you can see the content there is JSS1. Next up, move from D5 back to A1 using the arrow key. Okay, so I'm moving back to A1 using the arrow key. Okay, and then identify the active cell at each step. So I was at D5 and let's just track the name box here. So I'm moving to A1. So I moved up before. Now let me move left first. So now I'm C5, B5, A5, A4, A3, A2, and A1. Okay. What is the address of the cell containing Grace? Okay, so I'm trying to look for Grace. It's obviously here, but this is what I can do. Let's say I was at K1, I can do Control F. So when I do Control F, then I can type what I'm searching for. Control F is to help me find. So I'm looking for Grace and I click on Find Next, and you can see that A5 is highlighted, and you can see that column A and row 5 are also highlighted as well. Okay, so that's one way to search. Now, what is the address of the column titled Age? The column titled Age. So these are the column titles here, and this is a column titled Age, and it is C1. So the address is C1. Write the range that contains all student names. Range that contains all student names. So all the student names are from here. This is A2 all the way to B6. So this is the range. So we write the column and the row number A2, and then we put a colon, and then we have B6. So this is the range for all the student names. Save the file as student underscore list.xlsx. Okay, so I'm going to file and then save as. So I have to do save as because I'm using a new name, and then it's students. Okay, so I'm already in the folder. If I go to more options, you'll be able to see, okay, so this is my folder. It's my folder. My folder is called Coding Keywords Live, and then I can type it. So I'm to type students underscore list. Okay, I already have a file there. So I'm just going to make it student underscore list 1. And then I can choose to type XLSX there. It's already in that format. So I've saved it. Okay, so this is student underscore list 1. And that was because I already have student underscore list. Now close Excel. Okay, so you can, while practicing, you can close Excel and then reopen the file again, rename the worksheets to students. Okay, so yeah, so rename the worksheet to students. So remember that inside the file we have sheets, and I'm currently on sheet 1. So this is sheet 1. So I can come over to the file tab here, click on sheet 1, right click, and then rename, and I'm renaming it to students. So I'm renaming it to students. And next up, click different cells. Yes, this is what we have done. clicking on different cells, and then, okay, watch the name box. Currently, I'm on I-16. I'm now on M1, and then explain what changes and why. Yes, the cell addresses change, and that's because I'm moving to different columns and rows as well. Okay, so we are on a final um, part of this first module, and here we're going to be looking at common beginner mistakes, the likely mistakes, and the first one is confusing rows and columns. Okay, so at first this can be tricky, but with time you should get used to it. So the columns are lettered. Columns are lettered. The rows are numbered. So we have column A, B, C, D, E, and so on. And then we have rows 1, 2, 3, and all of that. So don't confuse them. Take note of, the difference. And then when you have a particular cell and you're trying to get to another cell, whether vertically or you want to move horizontally, you should be able to know whether you're moving across a row or up or down a column. So that's the first thing to take note of. Now, the second one is thinking each sheet is a different file. So when you start using Excel, now I'm moving to sheet 3, you might think that you have moved to a different file and maybe you have to go back to open the file, but no, you're still in the same file, but on different sheets, more like different pages. Okay, so next is not saving your files. Now, if you don't save your file and if you close a document, you're going to lose your data if you don't save it. So always ensure you save. Always ensure you save from time to time. Although the auto save option could also be turned on. Now, clicking randomly without observing the name box. Clicking randomly without observing the name box. That's another mistake. You can get lost, literally get lost in your data. So especially when you have a large data set. All right, so this brings us to the end of our lesson today. And then I'm just going to do a recap and just mention two keywords. And the two keywords I'll mention in number one, data. We use Excel to manipulate data, whether it's creating, populating your data, typing. Okay, so you can be typing, you can type text, you can type numbers, you can have dates, you can have different formats. And you're basically working with data when you're in Excel. You can do all kinds of things with your data. You can do calculations, you can do analysis, you can do your reporting. Excel is all about data, and we can see that it is grid based and it's like a table arrangement. So you're working with tables where columns and rows intersect to create our data. And so we have a single cell, we have a range of cells, we have a column highlighted, we have a row highlighted, as we click like that. And the second keyword I would like to mention is the concept of layers. Very important. So we have different layers. First, we have the folder in our computer. Inside the folder, we have our Excel file. We click on our Excel file, then we have sheets. Okay, so we have sheets, and then within the sheets, we have rows and columns, and then those rows and columns intersect to give us different cells, and it is now in those cells that we store our data. And then when it comes to a cell, we have the cell address, which is the combination of the column letter and the row number, and then we also have the contents of the cell. So whenever you're looking at a cell, you are defining it using the address, and you're also taking note of the content. So you know that the cell is a combination of the row and column, and that is inside a sheet, and that is inside a file, and that is inside a folder in your computer. So you have to be able to know these layers for you to be able to track your file and then use them and manipulate your data as you want to. So that's our introduction to Excel Module 1. That's the end of our um, of our module. So I want you to give me a feedback in the comment section. I want to know is this your first time using Excel, or have you used Excel before but you're not so familiar with it? What new thing did you learn? And in our next class, we're going to have introduction to data entry, data formatting in Excel. So we go into our Excel practice proper. So just to recap, this is coding keywords, and this is our introduction to Excel class. So we're having YouTube live sessions. We have 10 modules where we do introduction to Excel, and this is for those who want to learn Excel from the very basics. This is Excel for beginners, absolute beginners. So we're going to break it down, and we're going to be having a class live on YouTube. So what you're to do is also follow along. So after the class, you will have access to the video, and then you can also practice as well. So this is coding keywords, and here we look at coding and all things related to coding. All right, so computers have become a very important part of our lives, and we have all kinds of technologies around computers like AI, data analysis, and all of that. So what we do in coding keywords is that we break it down. We break it down to the basics for you. So we have lots of content, we have long videos, we have shorts where we try to show you in a simplified way all things related to tech and computers. So we also do trainings on Python. And I want you to subscribe to this channel. So subscribe to the channel. I want you to like this video, and I want you to also put your comments. And so we get to discuss the video. So see you in the next video. See you in our next YouTube live session as well. Bye.